Good morning. It is a cold and crisp morning here in North Carolina. And today I'm going to talk about the settings I use on my camera for bird photography. So come along and enjoy this adventure. But before we go into the settings, I want to talk about the three-legged stool. Now, there's a three-legged stool that we use as a wildlife photography to achieve the photos that we see in our mind when we're taking images here. And the three-legged stool is shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. These three elements are what makes your image, takes your image here. Now, if you're a wildlife photographer, you want to have a shallow field of focus when you're photographing birds because you only want the bird in focus. You need a fast shutter speed because birds are constantly moving. So to achieve this, the first setting I change is the mode, or the way the camera functions when you're taking images. Now, all cameras have basically four modes. They have automatic, usually what the setting it is out of the box, manual, aperture priority, or shutter priority. Now, automatic will take okay images, but it's not going to take those great images you see in your mind. Manual is just way too much for you to manage when you're out in the woods photographing birds. So the two options that we have left are aperture priority or shutter priority. Now, aperture priority means that you adjust the aperture and the camera adjusts the shutter speed. For shutter priority, you adjust the shutter speed and the camera adjusts the aperture. Now you might be asking yourself, well Sean, how does that get you to the shutter speed you need? So when I'm photographing up on a tripod, I try to shoot at 1/500th of a second or greater. If I'm handhelding, 1/1000th of a second. If I'm photographing flying birds, I want to be shooting at least 1/3000th of a second or greater. And if I'm photographing waterfowl, even greater than that, because waterfowl are among our fastest flying birds. So to achieve this, I have the camera in aperture priority. I have it set to the zoom that I want to set to. I open up the aperture all the way. What that does is two things. One, it creates a very shallow field of focus. The other thing it does is it lets the maximum amount of light into this camera here. So right now, I can't get any more light into this camera here. So to get the shutter speed I want, I look over to the left. And to get the shutter speed I want, if it's too low, I will increase my ISO. If it's too high, or if the number there is blinking, it's too high. It means that if your shutter number is blinking, that means that you need to have a faster shutter speed, but this camera can't go any faster. To lower that shutter speed, you decrease your ISO. Now there's a trade-off for this. The higher your ISO, the more sensitive the sensor gets to absorbing light. It also adds grain to your image here. Now I wouldn't get too hung up on that because I have photographed birds for videos I've done here at 80,000 ISO. And that should not stop you from taking images because you can fix a lot of the issues with grain, and I'm going to do a video on this in the future. I've actually done it in the past too, where you can actually denoise your images here. I'm going to leave a link to that video I've done in the past, but you can do incredible work in Lightroom. So don't hesitate to increase your ISO. So the first setting that I want you to consider, or the first two settings, is taking your camera and putting in an aperture priority and then manually controlling your ISO. The next thing I want to talk about to you is how you record your images. Now this camera out of the box was set up to record JPEGs. JPEGs are images that were set up for the internet. They're smaller, they're a little bit lower quality, and if you shoot in JPEGs, you have extreme limitations as to what you can do with that image once you get into post. To offset this, I suggest that you shoot in RAW. Yes, RAW images are a lot bigger than JPEG images, and they take up a lot more storage on your SD cards in your camera, but I strongly encourage you to do this. And it's just a simple matter of it gives you a lot more flexibility when you edit the image than when you shoot it in JPEG. So I think this is one of those non-discussion kind of things. If you're going to shoot wildlife photography and you want to take high quality images, you're going to have to shoot in RAW. A setting that you should have on your camera set is the image stabilization. Out of the box, your camera is set up to use image stabilization, and most lenses have image stabilization set up. Now, if you have, like in this case here, I have a Canon lens and a Canon body, I turn image stabilization on both devices on. And then the two devices negotiate which one is the one they use. And this is probably the best way that you can do it. I know I'm taking a lot of my control out of it, but as a general rule, that's the settings I use. Now, Now, it used to be said that if you were shooting a camera up on a tripod, you shouldn't use image stabilization because there was a little bit of device in there that would shake the camera. That's no longer true. If you're using image stabilization, have it on all the time because it will help you. Now, it won't fix if your shutter speed's way too slow, but it will help you a little bit. So turn on image stabilization. The last setting I want to give to you, and before I go any further, I want to say to you, you don't have to do all these settings at once. You can do one at a time until you get comfortable with that. You don't have to do them all at once. But the last setting I want you to change is I want you to change so that your shutter button doesn't focus the camera. So normally when you get your camera and you press the button halfway down, the camera focuses. I don't want you to do that anymore. I want you to use a button on the back of your camera, and it's probably called AF or on AF or AF on or something like that, and that's what you're going to use as a focus. So the only thing the shutter button is going to do when you press the shutter button, it's only going to take the image. And the reason why you want to do that is that when you're focusing on an animal, you don't want it to refocus when you're taking the image, pressing the shutter down. Also too, if you manually focus the image and you get that perfect image, just focus where you want. You don't want the camera refocusing the image. You want it to take it just like that. And by taking the focus off the shutter button and putting it on another button, it gives you a lot of micro control over how you focus your image and how these images are recorded. And this is how you record the next level of photography that you can do. So I'm hoping that this helped you. If you got anything out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel because that really helps us in the YouTube world. Hit that bell, that makes us really good. Become a Patreon supporter. Your support allows us to keep going. My name is Leahy. I want to thank you for watching.